In case you missed it, we have just released our Global Retirement Index, our annual ranking of the best places in the world to retire. Today, I am talking with expats living in the top 5 countries from our 2025 Global Retirement Index. We will cover everything from the cost of living and healthcare to visas, common misperceptions, and what they love most about their lives abroad. Hi, my name is Jen Stevens. I'm the executive editor here at International Living, and we are gathering here because we are going to unpack our 2025 Global Retirement Index. This is an index we've been putting together for now 34 years. And I thought we would get together with the countries that come in the top 5 and have a chat about what they have to recommend them. This index is something we consider a real tool. We've designed it so that it compares and contrasts and ranks and rates, and this year 20 countries across 7 different categories. And it's a way for people to put some order to what the benefits and drawbacks are of different countries and begin to kind of think about, well, what's important to me and where are the places I'm going to be able to find that. So with that said, we are joined here by these lovely expats and experts who live in the countries, as I said, that take the top 5 positions. Let me start by introducing them. Tula Rampon is joining us from France. France comes in at number 5 this year. Hi, Tula.
Hi.
Belle Woodhouse is joining us from Mexico. And
Hi, guys.
Belle, hi, Belle. Mexico comes in at number 4. Becca Baton from Costa Rica. Hi, Becca.
Hello.
And Costa Rica comes in at number 3. Glenda Cole's joining us from Portugal. Hi, Glenda.
Hi, Jen.
And Portugal, I was going to say Glenda, but Portugal comes in at number 2. You're always number 1 with me, Glenda. And last but not least is Jessica Ramesh. She's joining us from Panama. Hi, Jess.
Hi, Jen. Hi, everyone.
And Panama is the winner of the 2025 Global Retirement Index for International Living, a country that has won the index more than any other in the history of the index. So that's saying something. I should point out that all of the countries, all of the countries on the index are worthy of your attention. It's a little hard to rank them, to be honest. The scores end up being pretty close in some cases. They're all worth your attention, and depending on what's most important to you, whether something comes in at number 1 or number 10, it wouldn't be on the index if it wasn't worth a mention, not even more than a mention, wasn't worth your attention. So, okay, with that said, let's dive in. Let me start first with a sort of general question that I'll ask all of you, but we'll go one at a time. What are 1 or 2 things that you really appreciate most about life in the country that you now call home? Tula, why don't I start with you in France? You're based down in the south, right?
Yeah, I'm in the south east, which is like the traditional corner of Provence and near the larger city of Toulon. First of all, just really pretty. If you guys have traveled to France, especially down to the south, we've got the rolling vineyards and the Mediterranean Sea, of course. I'm originally from Southern California, and I think one of the things I really love about this area is it's like being in California with people just speaking a different language. Because the weather is quite similar, and so you really have all of the outdoor activities. I think the thing I like the most about France in general is what they call the joie de vivre, which is the joy of living. So everything is just slowed down. I mean, the French are still out there, as back in the day, getting their daily baguette and going to the farmer's market, going to the cheese shop. It really feels like another world, and especially coming from Southern California, my stress levels just pretty much disappeared. And I really just love the culture in general. Of course, the food and wine is amazing, but just living in the moment, I think that's really something so precious since I've left the United States. And also it just helps your general health. So
Yeah,
it's my
right. Sounds good to me. Belle, let's go to you. I'm going to ask you the same question. Where do you tell us where you live, and then also sort of what about Mexico or your part of Mexico do you particularly appreciate?
Okay, so I'm down in the Mexican Caribbean, and I absolutely adore the ocean. So I'm a real water baby, and I love that it's warm all year, so I can go swimming every day if I want. And instead of sitting in traffic, I can just go for a swim and look at sea turtles and swaying sea fans and things like this. So I really love nature, and there is abundance of flora and fauna here. And even traveling through the whole of Mexico, I discover all of these amazing new things that I've never seen before. And it's such an astoundingly beautiful country. But I think my favorite thing would actually be the Mexicans, because they are just so lovely and warm. And things like this morning, I've got a bit of a cold, so I quickly ducked to get more lemons and honey for my drinks. And the lady in the supermarket, I was asking for something for a recipe, and she got the last bunch of all things, parsley. And I was asking for perejil, which is parsley. And this old lady just turned around, ripped it in half, and gave me half. And I'm like, oh, and I get a bit sooky when I'm sick. So I'm trying not to blub in the middle of the supermarket. They're just the most friendly people that will literally give you, well, not the shirt off their back, but the parsley from their shopping cart. So it's super sweet, lovely culture and lovely people.
Nice, nice. And Becca, what about you? You're in Costa Rica on the Northern Pacific. Tell us maybe more specifically where you live, and then what's one or two things that you really appreciate about life there?
So I'm up on the northwestern part of Costa Rica near Tamarindo. And, what's interesting is I'm listening to everyone. I'm like, wow, we all have really great lives. And it's very similar, it's that nature, it's that outside living, it's that weather that we can, actually spend time all year together with people. And that kind of brings in the community aspect, because it's so easy to get together. You don't need to invite people to your house. We meet at the beach, or people meet at the park. And it's really that outdoor living and focus on community. And maybe when we leave our home countries, we leave a lot of family and our past there, and we have to kind of find that new family where we are. So I think that really just helps people connect. And I'm grateful for the community and the nature, because I'm a beach lover, but people love mountains. There's lots of different choices. And within 2 hours, there's so many different environments you can enjoy. I love going to the jungle for a couple days, because when it's dry here on the beach. So there's a lot of that, and I love it.
Well, that's great. And Jess, what about you in Panama? You've lived in more than one place in Panama. You started in Panama City. Now you're out at the beach. So you might answer this slightly differently, because maybe there's things you appreciate about both places. What do you appreciate most about Panama?
There are, and I've done stints in the mountains in El Valle and on the Caribbean too. So I really have covered the entire country as far as living. I think for most people, they would say it's the modern aspects, like the infrastructure and amazing telecommunications. But my top two would probably have to be, number one, the people. For me, that's really important. That culturally, Panama is a place that made me want to emulate the people and the way they live and sort their priorities. And then second, the climate, because we not only have, as you rightly pointed out, the warm tropical weather that Panama is associated with. We have the mountains as well, but wherever you go, it's mild. No hurricanes. We're not facing extreme temperatures every summer. So it's just a pleasant, sunny, breezy place to live.
And Glenda, go back to Europe with you. What about you? You're in Portugal, and you're down in the south. And you're interesting, because you were an International Living subscriber, and you did a little bit of a tour. You went to some of these countries to see where you might want to end up. So anyway, you ended up in Portugal.
Yes, I did.
What do you appreciate most about it?
It's tough, and I knew we'd get this question, because everyone says, why Portugal, right? And I was sitting this morning on my balcony, on my sunglasses, having breakfast, thinking, this beauty, I am surrounded by beauty, and it's just a beautiful life, which several people have said. I think one thing about Portugal, because certainly so many people speak English, you can sort of create your own bespoke, beautiful life. To me, I love my beautiful surroundings, and I love my view of the ocean. I also love my neighbors are my best friends. So socially, we're going to Spain for Christmas. And, so I think friendships are so important, and they're so easily made here, because we're filled with expats. And as I said, English speakers. And then finally, for me personally, I think giving back is important. So I'm on the board of a charity that provides free hospice at home. But I mean, my boyfriend loves tennis and we have neighbors that are dear golfers. I think here, certainly in the Algarve and in many places in Portugal, you can kind of create your own beautiful life.
Nice. Okay. I like it. I like that answer. I like all your answers. It is a hard question to answer, I think, in a way, because there's lots to appreciate. Well, let's dive into some specifics, if you don't mind. I want to talk about cost of living in your countries. This idea of living better for less is kind of baked into what we do here at International Living. Kind of that's a place. I like to think of it as good value, right? A place doesn't have to be the cheapest place on the planet if you feel like you're getting good value for your dollars. And I think that is really, people sometimes say, we always talk about living well for less, but sometimes it doesn't even have to be that much less. It just has to be better, right? And so anyway, let's talk about the cost of living. Where maybe speak a little bit to sort of give us some examples of where you find value in your budget when you're thinking about what it costs to live there. So Tula, I'm going to come back around to you. Do you feel like you're living a good value life in France?
I think people would be really, really surprised about France, because never in a million years one did I imagine living in France or that I could ever afford it, because I just thought, we get the image of like Paris is so chic, everything must be so expensive. And of course, if you do move to Paris, it's going to be a different type of budget. But the thing, I came for a year to kind of test it out. And I was an educator. I'm still an educator when I was in California. And the thing that's the most shocking is housing is a lot cheaper than the United States. So that's going to be your big savings. A lot of places in the south of France, still like in inland Provence, you still can get homes, like village homes for $150,000. Like currently, because I was researching for the index, rents in France are 51% on average cheaper than the United States, which is just so surprising. Yeah, absolutely. So even when you think about a place like Nice is comparable to major cities in the United States. Never in a million years you would think that. Buying a house on average is about 34% cheaper. Property taxes are a tenth of what we pay back home. So an average budget for a couple with outside of rent is about $2,000. So you can make it really interesting depending on where you go. As I mentioned, pockets of the south of France rents, like in Toulon, you can get a 2-bedroom furnished for $900. If you want to go to the southwest, like Dordogne, you're going to go even cheaper. Again, if you can go any direction with a budget. If you want to splash out, definitely go to like Paris, Nice, or Lyon. The other thing I think we'll touch on later is just healthcare. You're going to save a lot in healthcare. I think we'll go into like a little bit more depth with that. And what other one is, inflation hasn't hit us like with food prices. I don't know how it is for you guys, but it just hasn't been. When we were in the US, could not believe the prices, even going out to eat. And I mean, you still can get like a 3-course, which back in the day, I think would sound expensive. You get a 3-course meal here for like $36. So like a starter, a main dish, and dessert, and it's all good quality. It's fresh, it's seasonal. So I mean, there's a lot, but yeah, I mean, Paris is going to be on the pricier side, but you'd be surprised when you look at what property values are here.
Yeah, that's kind of. Oh, I remember last time we were in Paris, we spent a month and we were, what I agree with you. It wasn't that the items were that much less expensive, but you would, for the price of like a kind of run-of-the-mill cheese kind of thing in US, you would get this beautiful artisan, gorgeous cheese that, and for about the same price, maybe even a little bit less. So it was almost like the quality of the goods, while the prices weren't that much cheaper what you were getting was so much better. So yeah, interesting. Belle, what about you? Where do you see value in Mexico in terms of like cost of living?
Absolutely everywhere. Even on day-to-day things like just transport, getting around. I can get around basically anywhere for 100 pesos in a taxi, which is the most expensive way to get around. And that's what, $5? Or I can get the combi, the little local transport. It cost me 50 cents to go anywhere downtown. Ferries across to the mainland, $10. It just getting around is cheap. The food is super cheap. I just bought some big, beautiful grapefruit this morning. And I was talking to my friend who's up in Vermont, and we figured out it's a third of the price of what she pays. And I mean, I'm talking like almost the size of my face kind of grapefruits, and they are delicious. I just ate one. So just the wealth of fresh fruits and vegetables and produce. And one thing I hear a lot about people is they get a lot more for their dollar, but they get better quality for their dollar. And they also end up getting healthier. And that's the most common thing I hear about expats that move here is because it's warm, you know, they go for an evening stroll, or everything here is made fresh. So they're not eating as much processed foods and things like that. And their health picks up. They don't need as many medications, all that sort of stuff. So I see the main quality as in lifestyle and health. For me personally, and for most people I know, because everything is so much cheaper, I can afford the treats, I can afford the fancy cheeses, and I can afford to go out and meet my friends for lunch, or I can afford that extra bottle of wine on the weekend that we're not supposed to talk about that I know everybody does. And things like this, you know, I can afford my treats. For me, Christmas means shortbread. And I just got beautiful Scottish shortbread this morning, a big pack for like $5. And yeah, I won't tell you how many I've already eaten because it's a little bit embarrassing, but I can get everything that I need, everything I want, and it is literally half to a third of the price.
Wow. Okay. Becca, what about you? When you think about the value in Costa Rica, I mean, you're living close to the coast in a I don't know if you're a walk to the beach, but you're pretty close if it's not a stroll. Yeah, how do
Kilometers.
you see, okay, how do you see value in terms of like cost of living?
So it always amazes me when I'm talking with people who have moved here, the diversity of income or of expenses that they have. I was just talking with a couple who's in the Central Valley in Grecia, and they're on a Social Security payment of $1,330 a month. And within that, they pay $700 because they had a half a mortgage. But that's what they live on. They have a farm. This is what they love, and the farm feeds them. So, you know, you come and seeing two people living like that. I see a lot of single women who are retired down here living on $1,600 a month, right? Under $2,000. And up into, you know, a single guy is spending $3,000 a month. So I think there's just knowing that there's something for everyone is always what makes me so happy talking to these people and seeing that it is really possible. I have kids. Private school is expensive. Kids are expensive. So I'm always like, wow, that sounds so much better. But like in different areas, like on the Caribbean coast, it's much more affordable private schools and things like that. So you really, you know, you decide what's best for you. I live near Tamarindo, and it's really pretty much a metropolis. Now that I've been traveling around more, and I was just in the southern beaches like of the Nicoya Peninsula, and we have so many options here, and I love that, right? But as we need more medical care going into the Central Valley, it's just so much more convenient, and you still are close enough to be able to get to the beach within an hour when you're living in places like Grecia and Atenas, which have huge expat communities and get-togethers, and, you know, they spend time together. There's a lot of options. So I just love all that diversity here.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that you can, because sometimes people will say like, oh, you can't live there.
I never believed them either. I'm always
but
shocked.
you can. I mean, you can, you know, the sky's the limit. If you actually, the sky's not the limit, because in a lot of places, you can't actually spend, if you wanted to spend $10,000 a month, you really would have a hard time doing it. Like, I don't know what you would be spending it on, but you know, there are people who are going to live simply.
Yeah.
But and often they will say, you know, like, okay, I'm living on my Social Security, but I'm able to live, you know, I live 5 blocks from the beach in a little apartment, but that's fine because I'm able to be outside. I don't need to live in the fanciest place. I can walk to the beach. I can afford to get my coffee, and you know, they can live what they feel like is a quality of life that would be hard to replicate in the US in their position, in their economic position.
Enjoying the birds, the butterflies, the monkeys, right? So it's like your perspective and your priorities just shift a bit.
Right. Glenda, what about you? What about where do you see value in terms of cost of living in Portugal?
So I just came back from San Diego, and my son and I went to lunch at a fast food sandwich place. And I said, I'll buy, foolishly, I thought I'll buy the fast food lunch, right? $53 later for fast food for the two of us. I went,
Oh my God.
what is now it was a sandwich place, it wasn't McDonald's, but I was stunned, right?
Yeah.
So I literally thought, I thought to myself, wait a minute. I said to him, you know what? If we did this a few times, I could pay your plane trip back, and then we could go to lunch for $24 and have a 3-course with wine in a beautiful setting, and we wouldn't be sitting in this nasty sandwich shop, and I just dropped $53. So it's unbelievable. Overall, and I've done the numbers, right? I went online and I compared the Kroger app and the shopping and how much exact items were, because you can get a lot of the same, even those expensive brands here. And overall, food is still about 50% less than in the US. And
Wow.
certainly housing, rent, just all the entertainment is just so much cheaper, and there's so much to do. So I would say I could never live like this. I say I'm living like a queen, and I am. I could never afford this villa. I'm looking at the ocean right now and the rolling hills, and it's amazing. And I would seriously, I say I'd be living in the servants' quarters in the US, and I would. So this life is amazing, and you can do it all the way from how I live, and you can certainly live in the countryside. You might have to learn a little Portuguese, but you could live on less than your Social Security in the countryside if you chose to here.
All right, thank you. Jessica, what about you? And I think Panama's also a place where there's a range, because you've got Panama City, which is a proper big cosmopolitan city. And so that might be the one place where you could spend 10,000 a month if you wanted, if you tried, maybe if you tried. But tell us about the cost of living in Panama.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is, I think, Jen, this is the number one thing. This is what I always say, the number one reason that Panama does take the top spot so many times, because there might be other countries that win in this category or that category. But when we end up taking into account just how many boxes does a country check, that's where Panama tends to really shine. It's sort of your well-rounded expat destination, if you will. And for me, that was really important. Like, Panama doesn't charge me income tax. Panama has one of the lowest property taxes you're going to see anywhere, and mine hasn't really even kicked in yet, because you get exemptions sometimes on the construction value. So I'm paying like $20, $30 a year on the land value of my apartment, and when it kicks in, it's still going to be low at under $400 a year. Again, I wouldn't have been able to afford property even if I found something. You can find something as inexpensive in the States, not with my ocean view, but you can. But then, can you afford the property tax at the end of the year? And then the other thing about Panama is that, with all of these countries, we present these wide ranges of cost of living. You can live on as little as $2,000 a month, or you can take it up to $3,000 and live a little luxuriously. But the thing about it is that once you move out of the United States, you lose that fear of something happening medically and decimating your finances.
Yeah, that's true.
Everything you've worked hard for, and then suddenly you have some sort of medical emergency or some sort of condition pop up, and then it all goes, I don't want to say a bad word here, but it all goes to bleep. In Panama, I don't have that concern. So as far as cost of living, you mentioned Panama City, and I'll say on average monthly, you can live here on $2,500 a month, but that's a spectrum. We have beautiful places where you can live very well on $2,000 a month, because we're not going to tell people to come down here to live frugally, to not live a beautiful lifestyle. That's not the point of moving overseas at all. And then you have places like where I chose Coronado, which is the most convenient beach community in Panama, where you can live a life that feels a little luxurious for $2,900 to $3,000 a month. But if you choose the Caribbean islands of Bocas del Toro, or a place like Volcan in the cool highland region, then you could be one of those people that is living on $2,000 a month. And so when I say $2,500, I'm averaging from either end of that spectrum, and you can live a wonderful, fulfilling life on either end of that spectrum.
All right, nice. Let's talk about healthcare, because that's something that several of you have brought up. Obviously, it's a concern to most people. Should be a concern. If it's not, you're not thinking about you're not doing the right calculus, right? Everyone needs to think about, what are they going to do about their healthcare? What should somebody who's looking into your countries, what should they know about healthcare there? I hate to just keep going in a circle, but Tula, I'm going to go back to you.
Sure. Well, the cool thing is, I think once you leave the United States, you're going to find really great care at, really affordable prices. And I think that's a real shocking thing for a lot of people. I've been here, it's going on 14 years, and I still have a hard time getting my head around the system, because it really works for the patient. It's not just a cliche. So France is really cool because There's no age restrictions. You don't need to join any networks. Pre-existing, like everybody is eligible. If you're working, if you're not working, if you're retired, you're still active, anybody can come on over, and all you need is a long stay visa. So again, also there's private hospitals and private doctors, but in my experience, you don't need that to use them. So everybody's really on the public system. I have a private doctor just because he was a recommendation. I've been with him for about 10 years. I just saw him last week. And to see a doctor when you're not on the system is €25, and then you get reimbursed once you get on the healthcare system. So it comes out to $9 basically. So it's pretty incredible. I could go down the list of all the figures. Last time I had my teeth cleaned and a full exam and check, it was 13. It's incredible. The other thing that I really think speaks highly for France is, there's actually two things. Under the healthcare system, so you do pay into the system, you'll pay like between $1,800 and $2,600. It's just based on income, but that's like the range you'll pay every year. And God forbid anybody got like a long-term illness, but if you get a long-term illness, all of your treatments are covered under the system. So it's 100% covered. There's no like 70, 80% covered. It's all covered. So, got like cancers, Parkinson's, Alzheimer, any kind of long care treatments, 100% covered under the system. Last thing I'll say, which is a real plus for France, is retirement home system, because I know that could be a question when people are thinking like long-term. So as the healthcare system is regulated by the government, so are the retirement homes. We have about 3. I'm already scoping out for the future in our neighborhood. And that's a really nice thing to think about if you're looking to research an area. And some specialize in Alzheimer's care, and some are, different levels of independence. The nice thing about it too, the starting cost is $2,300 a month for a retirement home. So if you're thinking long-term, France is really cool for healthcare because they do have that system that already they've got the good healthcare, and then you can think long-term what you want to do for retirement.
Nice. All right, Belle, what about you? Healthcare in Mexico. Mexico is a huge country. So, I mean, I should say I can qualify it, but tell us generally, what do we need to know about healthcare in Mexico?
Okay, so where I live, which is in the Mexican Caribbean, it's like the crowning jewel of Mexico's tourism. So prices do tend to be a little bit higher here than, if you live in a tiny little pueblo in the middle of nowhere. But having said that, I had healthcare is crazy cheap. I'm talking like I had an accident and I was in the ER for a day and it cost me about $350. And I'm talking dental is the same. I had an emergency crown last month and it cost me just over $400. I had a lady contact me yesterday about dental travel to Mexico. Where should I stay? Blah, 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 because she has all of this dental work and she had been priced $17,000 in the US. I got a quote from my dentist. It was like $2,500. So to give you an idea of the differences, it is so much cheaper. That's why dental travel and medical travel is a thing here. You can roll up and have a holiday and a week on the beach in the Caribbean and get all of your medical and dental care done, and you still save money than if you got it done at home. So why not, right? But the good thing for retirees and seniors is we have the INAPAM, and our healthcare is here. Once you are a resident, that's a permanent resident or temporary resident, you're eligible for them. And honestly, everything is free. Okay. A lot of expats still do have medical private insurance, even though they don't need it, and they keep the medical here as a backup. But even speaking to them, I've heard ranges from $1,200 a year to $1,800 a year. And one man that had a severe cardiac issue, he was just over $3,000 a year. Okay, through private health insurance. The health insurance here is fantastic. It is affordable. It is free for seniors. You can have private if you wish it. But the other thing that I really, really love is that all of the healthcare professionals are so incredibly sweet and caring. Like, they will give you their personal phone number. They hold your hand. My dentist played, I get a bit skittish around the drills. I hate the noise. He put on music and had soft music playing for me because, I'm a sook. But you know what I mean? Like, they honestly really care. And all of the medications, are so much cheaper and affordable. My best friend here on the island has type 1 diabetes. It costs her over $300 a month for her medication back in the US. Here it costs her $35. Okay, so it's like a tenth of the price. So, and it's the same stuff. So it doesn't matter if you have pre-existing conditions, if something happens in an emergency, like I'm an idiot and came off my bicycle, or if you have ongoing issues, very affordable, excellent, modern. Most professionals are English speaking, and I don't know, I just can't think of enough good things to say. It's wonderful. It really is.
Becca,
Yeah.
well, let's go to you in Costa Rica, Becca. Tell us about the healthcare system in Costa Rica?
Well, the dental sounds very familiar. I know a lot of people who come down here to get their dental work done because it is more affordable. As for our public system, when it's an emergency, we use it and it works well. When you have to wait for specialists, it could be a long wait. So in that case, a lot of people use either their private or you pay out of pocket because things are so much more affordable here for procedures than they are in the States, right? Even things like, you know, mammograms are $100. And if you have a Medicare, which is a discount service, you get it for $50 and you pay $15 a month. So, you know, just to get all of your checkups every year, it's worth using a service like that because you get your money's worth, you know, it makes it more affordable. And I've been talking with a lot of retirees for the index recently, and, you know, they all said they keep their Medicare in the States, and a couple of them have gone back for major things, right? One guy had a big heart surgery. The other one had a replacement. It wasn't an emergency thing though, right? So they would have been waiting more in Costa Rica and it was just easier for them to go back. So I think that's an important thing to remember that. And we mix and match, and you can also mix and match with the US when you need to in those kinds of cases.
Okay. Yeah,
But
right. That makes sense. No, go
private
ahead.
doctors are affordable. They take you, you can go and get your, like, for example, we get our lab in the public system, so we don't have to pay for those blood tests, right? So, you know, we have those kind of advantages that really help.
Yeah, right. That makes good sense. Glenda, what about Portugal? How do you feel about the healthcare in Portugal?
Yeah, you do have the freebie, the absolutely free public system, which again, it's wait times. So I have neighbors, they certainly don't have an issue with money, but they're very healthy. So they are on the public system and they're very pleased with it. However, I'm very unhealthy, so I'm on the private pay. And they raised me recently. I was very annoyed. It went up to an entire $207 a month versus what I've been paying in California, which I don't even think I can say out loud without getting ill. So it's incredible how great the service is. My doctor speaks impeccable English, much better than mine. She's South African. She's a terrific diagnostician. And right now I have an eye infection, which is why I have glasses on. And just in case, she gave me the drops, but just in case, she made me an appointment for next week, because if I'm not completely healed in a week, I can go to the hospital and see a specialist, and that will cost me about 17 euros out of pocket on the system that is private. And I get kind of impeccable service here, and pretty much everyone speaks English, and it is so worth the pittance of $207 a month.
Yeah. Wow. Praise town, man. Jess, what about Panama and healthcare? Because this is a real bright spot. This is a bright spot in Panama as well, which always scores well in the healthcare category.
It does. And very similar to a lot of what everybody else has described in their countries outside of the US. You find a lot of really common sense, makes sense healthcare. In Panama, I'll highlight we have everything from your sort of field hospital, camp style hospital, up to a Johns Hopkins International affiliated hospital, Pacifica Salud, formerly Punta Pacifica, in Panama City. And all of our major hospitals in Panama City are either JCI accredited, which is a very high standard of accreditation internationally, or they have US hospital, very prestigious US hospital affiliations. So being a small country, Panama still gains the benefit of a larger country where they're seeing more cases. And so our doctors are learning sort of from international examples. We also have hospitals here that accept TRICARE. So we have a huge US veteran population in Panama because this country is making it easy. So the other thing is, being a smaller, sort of very well-served country, that means pretty much anywhere you are in Panama, you're near a hospital. Almost anywhere, you're within an hour from a major facility. And then in Latin America, you have public centers, long wait times like we've talked about in the other countries. You have these little mini and smaller rural towns, centros de salud, and pretty much any warm weather location, if you want to live anywhere in the world that's warm weather year round, you're gonna have this dichotomy of the super technologically advanced and then the outpost camp doctor, maybe with a simple built concrete structure, and we manage our health with all of these things. And in Panama, you don't pay to become a part of the public system. That's not a requirement. It's not built around that. So if you're an employee of a Panamanian company, you're part of the Social Security system. If you're not, you're not. You don't pay a monthly amount. You pay as you go, and it's highly subsidized. So when you hear an expat in Pedicee in Panama tell you that they paid $2 to see a doctor, that's no lie. That's no exaggeration. That's really what it is. And you have people here who do go ahead and buy insurance, and if you have insurance, you might pay $150 to $250 a month for a modest plan. You don't need really high lifetime because the costs are lower here. And, you know, with a copay, seeing a specialist that costs normally in a very, very fancy hospital in Panama City that would cost $50 to $100, with your copay and your insurance, it might be $17. That's what it was for me the last time I paid. With my insurance, I also get 20% off medication. That is pretty easy to get, no matter who you are in Panama. So I've never filled out a claim. I don't spend hours of my life filling out claim forms and dealing with insurance. And like Belle mentioned, your doctors spend time with you. They give you their cell phone numbers, so you're not falling through the cracks because somebody missed something, which also ends up being expensive in the States, right? You're rushed through and you're misdiagnosed sometimes. And I find that it's just easier. My dentist sits down and talks to me, not just about my oral health, but he wants to know, am I particularly stressed this month? Am I grinding my teeth? Are there other issues that might be impacting things? And I can afford to be proactive here instead of
Nice.
thinking about things and then ending up spending a lot of money on my teeth later in life because I wasn't proactive. Right now, I'm trying to get ahead of it so that I don't have these problems later on. That
Right.
just gives you peace of mind.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm going to stay with you, Jess, because my next question is about visas. It's about sort of about getting long stay visas in your countries. And Panama comes in at the top of this category in the index. Our category is visas and benefits. So yeah, talk to us about why does it win in that category? It pretty much wins every year in that category. It's hard to beat Panama on the visa options.
It does. It does. I mean, it's that pioneering pensionado program, right? What an amazing track record Panama has for welcoming foreigners as far back as my grandparents' day. And you know, what I was saying earlier about my getting 20% off medication through my insurance. Well, if you don't have insurance here, but you're a pensionado, you're of retiree age and you're a legal resident, no matter which visa you come in on. Once you hit that age, you automatically get these discounts. You don't have to pay for a monthly insurance program in order to utilize those discounts. And it's not just 20% off medication. You're getting a percentage off of your doctor's visits, your consults, your medical treatment in a hospital. But it's also across the board. It's not just healthcare. You're getting 25% off your power bill. You're getting a percentage off of your water bill. And then it's the necessities, but then the government also wanted people to live fulfilling lives, for retirees not to feel like they had to live apart from society because now I can't afford to go out to eat as much, or I can't afford to go to the theater as much. So you're getting 50% off entertainment as the government's way of saying we all live as a society together. You're getting money off of travel, you're getting money off at hotels, restaurant meals. Your food, you're getting 25% off of that. So really, when you come to Panama and you see everybody of all ages partying together and enjoying the many things that we have to enjoy here together, that's down to that pensionado program. And the fact that it makes it easy for you to gain residence with just a pension, just showing that you have a pension of $1,000 a month. The government of Panama says, okay, we think that's enough for you not to become a burden on the system. And we're going to go ahead and grant you the right to live here for as long as you'd like to. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing because in some places you do have to have a lot of different qualifications or jump through hoops. So let's go to Costa Rica. The Costa Rica scores well in this category as well. Becca, what should people know about visas in Costa Rica?
Well, it's also, we have that $1,000 minimum of making in order to get the visa for pensionado. And, you know, when you get it for investment, it's only $150,000. So it's very accessible to be able to get your residency.
And to clarify, meaning like I could make an investment of $150,000 in a piece of property in a condo or a house,
Yes,
and then that would give
exactly.
me automatically.
Yes, and I would be able to go and get my residency that way. And the real great thing that a lot of Canadians are really happy about, because now they've changed, and you have 180 up to 180-day visa. When you come into the country through immigration, they always can decide how many days you're going to get. But I know a lot of people who are perpetual tourists that don't have their residency and come and go, and they are always getting these times, right? And that just makes it much easier. People don't have to leave the country every 90 days. They can stay for their full winter now, and they don't have to get interrupted or anything. So I think that's made a big difference. And then digital nomad, you know, they have a new digital nomad visa this past couple of years that you can stay for up to 2 years with that. So there's just a lot of different options. And, you know, that just makes it easier when you go that route. It's easier to get things in the country, right? You're able to easily get cell phone and bank accounts and things like that. I mean, sometimes you can get them not being a resident, but there's more hoops to jump through. It's not always as, you know, black and white. So there are benefits to going through these programs.
Right. And then as you said, and this is going to be true of Mexico, where we're going to go next, Phil. You can stay for what is effectively 6 months on a trip. It's nice. It's 180 days, but it's basically 6 months without having to deal with getting any visa if you don't want to, which does make, particularly for countries that are close by, it makes it easy to just winter over somewhere. Belle, talk to us about Mexico's visa situation.
Yeah, as you said, we do get 180 days free. They do have discretion. So some people fly into Mexico City and they get their passport stamped and they find out they've got a month. So just be careful that you do ask for the 180 days. But if you fly in most places, you will automatically get it. So that means that a lot of people do come to Mexico over winter. So we get a lot of snowbirds, both Canadians and Americans alike. I would say my island would be over double the residents when it comes to
Really?
it's getting cold up north. Everyone comes to Mexico because why not? It's great. It's warm. It's fabulous food. It's cheaper. It's fantastic. So yeah, snowbirds love it. Retirees love it. They all come down no matter where you want to go in Mexico. It's not just my area. It's the whole of Mexico. And that's very popular.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, is it pretty easy if you want to get that longer term visa? So I know, because a lot of people do just do the winter over for 6 months, but tell us a little bit how that works with the longer stay visa.
Okay. So you have two options. You can be a temporary resident or a permanent resident, and there is a bunch of ways to go around that. You can either prove X amount of income, X amount in investments, X amount in savings, or X amount in real estate and investments. So there's like 4 different ways to qualify. It's worked out on 300 days of the average Mexican wage. So that goes up and down. So it does change a little bit. And there's actually 2 ways. You can apply in a consulate in your country, whether it be America or Europe or wherever. They will work it out on the Mexico daily wage. Or if you apply for the visas, either temporary or permanent within Mexico, they use a different way which is a different scale, and it's actually cheaper. So if you wanted to come down for your 6 months and be a bit of thing, you can easily go to an immigration office, no matter where you go in Mexico, and find out and maybe start the process that way, and it might become a lot cheaper. So there's a little loophole for you.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good tip. That's great. Let's move on to Glenda in Portugal, visas. Now I know there's been lots of talk in the press over the last year or so about like the golden visa being somebody just being able to make an investment in a piece of property most often, and then get a long stay visa in exchange. And that Portugal's kind of changed that rule. So what's the situation now?
So it's interesting. They have eliminated that golden visa, and I think it was 500,000 at the time. But the truth is, my tax accountant said that I did not want to become a citizen because I didn't want to get involved in the taxes that are involved with the citizenship here in Portugal. So I'm going to be, in 5 years, I'll become a permanent resident with basically pretty much all of the benefits that a citizen would have. There are a couple ways to get here. There is as other people have said, there's a digital nomad visa. There is a long-term stay visa, which I came on. You have to, unlike what we just talked about, in some countries, you have to start that process while you're in the US. And Portugal's farmed it out to a third party. And it's a little complicated when you're in the US. It's a lot complicated. They make it complicated. Once you arrive here, I was all ready for the same misery, thinking even more, right? And it took me 20 minutes and boom, I had 2 years here, and I'm just renewed it for another 2 years. And then after a final 5th year, I have the option to become a permanent resident, and I don't even have to take a Portuguese test to do that.
Nice. All right. Very good. And what about Tula? What about France? Is actually pretty straightforward, relatively straightforward when it comes to visas, which I think always surprises people.
I agree. It's a big surprise. It's going under the radar, France again. Yeah, you just need to come over on the long stay visa. There's no retirement visa. Everybody's coming over on the long stay visa. It's good for 12 months. And at that time, it's going to renew in France, and then it renews total of 4 times. So 5 years total in France. And then you can go for 10-year residence card. So you don't have to worry about renewing for 10 years, or you can go the citizenship route. All you need is proof of French minimum wage. It's currently about $1,500 a month. And you just need to show 3 months of residence, like a place to stay, housing, when you arrive for 3 months. So you don't need a deed, you don't even need like a long-term or short-term rental. It could be Airbnb, a combo of like hotels. The only thing is that you can't work on that visa. You could maybe change your status later on when you change to like long-term resident, or you get a citizenship. The one thing I'll mention that's really important, since we talked about taxes, very important fact for France is that I know that could get like a big scary thing for the French taxes. You don't need to pay into the French tax system as you're coming over as a retiree because of the tax treaty. So France can't touch any of your pension, passive income, etc. So it's actually quite straightforward. There's a specific visa health insurance to buy. You can either hold on to that, you need that for 12 months to apply for the visa, or you can cancel it when you're here and you get on the French healthcare system. And the turnaround time is, it's also like Glenda was saying, handled by a third party. I think it's the same third party processing folks that do it. All has to happen in the US. They forward all the documents to the consulate, and then the turnaround time is about 2 to 3 weeks to get your visa back. And it'll be mailed to your house. So it's a big surprise, friends.
Yeah, no, it's very much so, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just stay with you because we're in this theme of being surprised by things. So Tula, what is something that people you think misperceive about France that you'd like to debunk? Maybe a myth or something that people always say.
Kind of the obvious one, the poor French. I honestly the whole time I lived in the US, I don't know where we got this stereotype, where it started. I thought the French just hated us. Thought they couldn't stand us. I thought they were snobby. I mean, just to be straight, I just thought I was gonna have the hardest time. Like I said, I came for a year to like test it out. I was gonna pick up my career again in California. That seemed like really easy to do on top of learning French. So I thought, well, you know what, let's just eat some good food and have some wine, and then maybe I'll go back. Because I was really, really invested in my girlfriends back home. I'm someone who like really loves my female relationships. We're always at Taco Tuesday. That was like our thing. And I realized I couldn't be anywhere where I wasn't going to have like that same level. And maybe it sounds weird, but the other day I counted how many French girlfriends I have. And I have 5 French girlfriends, like tried and true, like Taco Tuesdays, maybe Baguette Mondays. And they're there for you, moving, shoulder to cry on. Like they're very genuine people. An expat that I know wrote a book. I think this sums up the French the best way that I know how. He said the French are like coconuts because they have a hard exterior, and when you crack them, it's all sweet inside. And like that is true because you're not going to make a really good French friend until like 4 to 6 months in. So if you're just traveling through France, they're like checking you out. They are terribly embarrassed of their English, unless you're like in Paris or a larger city. They didn't really get a great education. This is like one of my favorite topics, but I will cut it down. Is they just think we're better than the Americans are. Their like favorite show is Friends. Like you go down the street, people have got the NBA basketball jerseys on. Our neighbor, he's a huge LA Rams fan. He stays up till like 3 or 4 in the morning. Why you would never get that. You would just never get that until you're here for a while. So I always say, give France a chance. I didn't speak a word of French. You think it's terrible when you come. And then after a while, you're like, this is a wonderful language. So give it a chance, because the first 6 months, people are going to just be checking you out. And then you're going to have really, really great friends forever. So that's my soapbox.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that's good. It's useful. I think it's an interesting, I like to hear what people say. So Belle, what about you? A misperception that people have about Mexico?
Okay, the biggest one is safety. I swear people think that when you arrive in Mexico, anywhere in Mexico, and it's a huge country, you know, that there's people in shootouts in the street and all the rest of it. It is not. I've never even seen a gun. I don't know any Mexicans that own guns. And I travel through Mexico by myself as a single woman, never had an issue, never even been looked at funny. If anything, they will bend over backwards to help you. I've never had one single instance either in the Yucatan where I live or in my state of Quintana Roo or anywhere that I've traveled, big cities, small towns, anything. The only thing I will say is depending on where you live, you may need to learn a little bit of Spanish. But most of the places, big places with expats, you can get away with English only. And everyone is so incredibly sweet. Like Tula's analogy, they're all coconuts. Actually, they're not even coconuts.
They're
They
not
don't
even
really have
coconuts
hard
in Mexico.
exterior.
Mexicans are very friendly, I think.
I was going to say, there's no hard exterior. The first time you meet them,
Kiwi.
they're going to give you a hug and
Kiwi. They're
kiss.
like a kiwi.
Yeah, they're like a kiwi. So, yeah, just very sweet people, very caring people. It's all about family and their culture and looking after each other and their neighbors and their friends and their person they just met 5 minutes ago. So you will find it very easy to fit in. As I said, safety has never been an issue for me. I mean, I won't vouch for your safety if you're drunk at 2 a.m. and stumble down a dark alley. But I mean, I wouldn't vouch for your safety in the US or Australia or France or any country. Well, you'd have to be a little bit silly to do that. But yeah, as I said, safety, not an issue.
All right. Becca, what about Costa Rica? What's a misperception people have about Costa Rica?
Okay, so I would say rice and beans is not weird for breakfast, and neither is ice in your beer. These are things we just get used to. No, seriously. You know, things don't get done fast. So people say, you know, oh, people are lazy or things don't get done. And I think it's really about just adapting our we need it now mindset. And, you know, when something happens and you have to do something again, you know, we always just joke, and you have to really take that pura vida attitude and just say, oh, pura vida, you know, that's what happens. So not that it drives people crazy, yet there are people who do end up leaving because they don't want to slow down or they don't know how to slow down. Right. So, but a lot of people, it's easy. You know, I have a lot of people who are like, I was type A personality and now I'm so relaxed now. And it took a couple months, but I really was able to, you know, figure that out. And I think that's the, you know, that slowing down and being able to enjoy things and not get so worked up about things. That
right.
Important.
What about Portugal, Glenda? What is the misperception?
You know, it's hard to think of any really, except I would say that people think I've heard lately, well, it's gotten so expensive that I'm taking it off my list. Oh, I heard it's gotten really expensive. And so I did an exercise because I love my spreadsheets, and I compared the numbers I did last year, a year ago, on all the groceries and all the housing. And I did the exact same numbers a year later. If anything, groceries were pretty much the same, and healthcare was the same. Housing was the same or a little less in a number of instances. So, you know, I think it's gotten a little bit of a misnomer for some reason, and I don't quite understand.
Yeah, well, and I think parts of Lisbon have gotten some, not even all of Lisbon, some parts of Lisbon have gotten more expensive in housing. But yes. I would say that I had the same perception when I was there a few months back. So Jess, what's a misperception about Panama that you'd like to clear up?
Okay, I love this question. And you know, there are still a lot of people that use terminology like third world to apply to places like Panama and even Mexico. And I'd love for more people to sort of update their dictionaries a little bit, the mental atlas of information. So here's the deal. And I do believe that our world travelers watching us today are getting wise to the fact that while it's true Panama is much younger as a republic than the US, and you do have to bear that in mind. It's also true that it's very advanced in very important ways. Being a small, wealthy country of about 4 million total. And, you know, Panama is the wealthiest in Latin America by purchasing power parity. That allows Panama to be quite progressive and agile and able to adopt things as policy with perhaps a bit more of a streamlined approach than the US or Canada. And another pro is that Panama has long been a business destination. So that means that developing good business infrastructure and policies, that was traditionally more of a priority than, say, developing as a tourism destination. So these are some of the factors that help make Panama in some ways so shockingly modern and comfortable to live in. So in Panama, I have, by any standards, incredible internet. Generally, we're tops in telecommunications. And so crypto comes along and Panama becomes one of the first countries to test crypto ATM machines. And the average working Panamanian has access to free doctor's appointments, dental cleanings, and necessary surgery. Now, as I said, the US is about 248 years old, Panama about 121 years old. So, you know, if the US is a boomer, then Panama's a millennial. And it's not perfect. It has more growing to do, but here's the main thing. Keeping in mind the age difference over and over again, when I compare Panama's progress with that of the so-called first world, what it is amazing. The velocity, yes, but also the emotional intelligence and maintaining priorities. So I'm living a modern life, but I'm also living a happier, more centered life. And I think that's Panama and also just Latin America in a nutshell.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. I want to. I'm going to have one more question before we wrap up here. So I don't want to keep everyone too long, but I wanted to just ask about sort of the expat communities where you guys live, because I think that's something that worries people. Like the idea of going abroad is exciting, but then you think like, oh, am I going to make friends, and am I going to be able to integrate? Like I don't speak the language, or how does that all work? So that's kind of what I'm curious about. Tula, let's go to you. You know, you've spoken about this a little bit. You said you have your girlfriends, but when you think about expat community in your community or in France, Greater France, what do you think about it?
I think it's really, really important to get connected to an expat community, especially right off the bat where you're going through the transitional phase, because those are going to be your best kind of contacts, like to tell you like the ins and outs, like even where do we go, you know, if we want information on, you know, something to fix in the house, or do I need to go register for my, you know, continuation of my visa? What do I need to do? And then just fun stuff, like we're going to have Thanksgiving at our house in a, you know, a little bit after the date, you know, and you just want those memories from home. You know, you want that camaraderie. Me and my girlfriend always talk about how much we miss TJ Maxx and Roth. I mean, you know, nobody would get that back home. I mean, here, you know, you want to have those like feelings from back home. And someone told me this a while ago, which I think is really important to keep in mind. I'm stealing this from Adrienne Leeds, is you know, the expats, the Americans that you're going to find abroad are not exactly the ones that you had back home. So a lot of people are really skittish about, oh, you know, I don't want to be around a bunch of Americans, but you can tip your toe in and tip your toe out. You know, you can go to the group. You don't have to be like married, you know, tied to everybody. You know, they've got Halloween events. I go with my daughter. That's really nice. That, you know, traditional feeling from home. And again, just the camaraderie and the fun. And, you know, you might pick up a couple friends. You don't necessarily need to go back, but I do think it's nice to have. And, you know, the nice thing about obviously, you know, international living is get in touch with any of us and we'll put you in contact with the local, you know, or, you know, not even local, the expat groups around the country.
Right. Belle, what about you? How do you describe your community, your expat community where you live?
I would describe it as international. Just in my building, the guy that lives upstairs is Swiss. My neighbor on that side, Luca, is Italian, and his wonderful mother, Gabrielle, I don't understand a word she says, but she's fabulous. The lady under her is from Uruguay. You know, my neighbor's downstairs, Mexican, obviously, but you know, I can take my garbage out in the morning and say hello in 4 different languages. It's very international, it's very eclectic, and there is a group for everyone. Like if you want to do a paint and sip art class, do it. If you want to go and do a snorkel meetup where you speak English and Spanish and go snorkeling, do it. If you want to do tequila shots on the beach, do it. Or if you want to start a new business and go to the ladies who lunch, do it. Or there's a power breakfast ladies gathering every month or something. Do that too. No matter what you want to do or the life that you want to lead or how busy or how retired, or if you're not retired, you are, there is a group for you.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Becca, and there are a lot of, in Costa Rica, particularly up where you are, there are a lot of expats, right? Is Becca
Is that
freeze?
for me or Becca?
Oh, for Becca.
Frozen for
But
a
I think
second.
she froze. So we'll move on. We'll ask Glenda and we'll come back to Becca. Oh, we lost Becca. Hopefully she'll dial back in. Glenda, what about you? Expat community where you are?
It is an expat playground. It is I mean, my best friends are one's Irish, one's British. I laugh. I said when I come here, I thought I had to learn to speak Portuguese. I had to learn to speak Brit. The Brits have been retiring down here for literally 3 generations. So they've made it this playground, and every group you could ever want to join. You know, there's everything from gardening to hiking to tennis clubs. I'm in 2 social clubs. I'm the social secretary of one. It's just, there are 1,000 things to be done here, and every interest you ever thought of in your life or didn't think of, you could probably find here to be done. And the expats are so happy. That's an interesting thing I find. So my neighbors, the friends we meet, there's this general happy level here. And I don't know if it's because most of us are retired or that we're living in this paradise, but it's different when people on you meet, they're smiling and they're happy and they wave to you when you're driving by versus, you know, the ugly resting face in America versus the happy resting face in Portugal.
Right. Becca, I'll circle back to you, Becca, now since you're back. Talk about the expat community in Tamarindo or in Costa Rica generally.
Yeah, you know, it's the same. There are so many different activities to do. There's so many meetups like dinners on Tuesday nights in Tamarindo, or when I was traveling to Grecia and Atenas, you know, every week they get together in Grecia at 12 p.m. at a restaurant. And there's just so many regular, consistent meetups that it's really easy to get to know people and to really build that community, you know, and activity, right? There's pickleball, there's tennis, there's gym classes, you know, there's just so many different things to do that you can find, you know, everyone finds something they love.
Yeah, that's great. And Jess, talk about that expat community in Panama, because Panama is a very international hub, like lots of international businesses that are registered there. So there is not just sort of a community of retirees, but in Panama, Greater Panama, there are a lot of expats from all over, right?
From all over. And I'll say pretty much any community you land in, you're going to find that these are some of the most active expat communities that you can find in the world. And echoing some of what Tula said, you do need that expat grapevine. You do need to sometimes just be able to commiserate and talk about things that are familiar and comfortable. About half of my friends here are expats, about the other half are Panamanians who are very internationally minded, well-traveled intellectual types. And I think that whatever it is that you value, that's what I was looking for, whatever you're looking for. And we talk about this a lot in my community here in Coronado, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, there's definitely going to be a tribe for you. And like the others have said, because so many of us are in the same boat, we've arrived here as newbies, we know what it's like, we're living our best lives here, we're so much happier than we were before, that makes it just such an incredibly welcoming environment. And no wonder the local people like us. We're so smiling and happy most of the time that, you know, most of us make good neighbors and good additions to the community. So it's a wonderful thing to start out in an expat community and have that soft landing and have that support. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to learn a language and make friends with local people. I certainly have been able to make friends with people from France, people from everywhere. But it makes it easy to start out, and why not make it easy on yourself?
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's a perfect place for us to wrap up. Like a nice sentiment. Before we do wrap up, I want to say if you are tuning in here and you're not yet an International Living member, I encourage you to subscribe. We have our, as I said, the 2025 Global Retirement Index. When you are a member, you get not just the chart, but you get this multi-100-page book about all of the places that are on it that help you analyze and home in on the spot that will be right for you. And I want to point out too that we are doing something I'm really excited about in our January 2025 issue. We are doing sort of a secondary index almost. We are taking a deep dive into not just countries that should be on people's radar, but specific regions and towns and communities that you really should be thinking about. And so it's a way to kind of start with your index that we've just been talking about, but then take a deeper dive into that and figure out where specifically communities that should be on your radar. So I'm really excited about that. And if you become a member, you will get that as well. So to all of my guests here, thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming and joining me here. I guess I will be lucky enough to see at least some, if not all of you in the next few months. We're going to have our big Panama event. Our Fast Track Panama event is taking place in Panama in February. Then we will be in Portugal. So I'll see you in Portugal in April. That's our Europe event. So we'll be focused on Europe, and we are down to the very last few seats in that. So if you're interested in coming to Europe and learning about your options there, you want to get on our website and sign up for that soon. We'll be in Costa Rica in May. And then we will have our big Ultimate Go Overseas boot camp in Portland, Oregon in September 2025. So I would hope I will see all of you guys there, but I hope that I will see people who are tuning in here as well. So Tula and Becca and all of you, I'm just going to go through, I know who you all are, Glenda and Jess. Thank you. Who did I miss? Thank you so much, Phil, for joining us and joining me here. And for those of you tuning in, I hope we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.